so that you can have feedback. So we're going to get started. So I wanted to welcome everyone to the webinar, Sales Action Planning, Reaching Out to the Best Buyer for You. My name is Juanita Ford, and I'm with Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador. We are very pleased to have you all join us today, and we're looking forward to some great discussion. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, if you're on your phone, please push *6 to mute your phone. If you want to unmute it to ask a question, you just push #6. You can also use the chat window on the screen if you have any questions as we go through or having any issues. Also, you can raise your hand and we can speak to you if you like. If you have any questions, feel free to bring them up throughout and we'll keep watch for them, or we'll have a Q&A period at the end. So on behalf of the partners, which is Tourism New Brunswick, Tourism Nova Scotia, Tourism Newfoundland and Labrador, and Tourism Prince Edward Island and ACOA, I'm very happy today to welcome Eva Gooch of STEM Consulting and Marketing here with us today to lead this workshop on Sales Action Planning, which is being brought to you by the Atlantic Canada Travel Trade Market Readiness Program. Eva is the founder of STEM Consulting and Marketing and brings a wide range of experience and expertise to the organization. Her solid background in management and sales allows for a practical hands-on approach to be applied in various programs. Eva has been facilitating for many years, working with the Tourism in Newfoundland and Labrador and Atlantic Canada to bring you these programs. So on behalf of the partners, I'd like to welcome Eva and throw it over to you this afternoon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Juanita, and thank you for a great turnout today. So that's great. Wondered if I could just get a quick show of hands. If you put a little note in the chat box of how many have actually sat through the Atlantic Canada Travel Trade Readiness Workshop. That would be great to know. So if you can give me a sign there, that would be fantastic, and we'll jump right in. So here we go. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, we're going to take a look at really planning. So getting ready to approach the buyers that are really going to be the best fit for you, and so starting a great partnership for the future. And then how to structure the presentation. We'll look at a couple of different presentation options, and then some do's and don'ts. And so a lot of the information that's in the workshop today is direct feedback from the clients that you'll actually be meeting with and engaging with. So some really good advice from them, and that will be some really great advice for you as you get ready to start branching out and increasing and perhaps attracting your first receptive tour operator, inbound tour operator, or building upon what you've already got as far as a base for your business. And then we'll talk a little bit about what happens once you've got your partnership in place. How do you leverage that relationship? How do you go in and do product training and work with that business in order that it's really mutual beneficial for both of you? And then we'll do a little wrap up. Please ask questions along the way. Juanita's going to help kind of monitor some of the questions. So lots of yeses up on the side here, so great to see that. I'll be referring to the Travel Trade Toolkit throughout the workshop. So if you haven't had a chance to go to a workshop, certainly recommend it for the future as you're kind of looking at what you're going to do in 2020 and watch for some of those coming up. But in the meantime, you can download the toolkit. The links will be provided to you at the end of this webinar. You'll have access to that. And so as I'm flipping back and forth referencing certain sections, you'll be able to go back and take a look at that. So that's the plan for the next hour. And so when we look at the reason that this Atlantic Canada Travel Trade Readiness Program exists, it's really to help businesses in Atlantic Canada expand your distribution channels, attract new customers, and build your business. And so there's a couple of resources. So I've referenced the toolkit, which breaks down into 6 modules. So there might be some aspects that you're really already quite comfortable with, and there's others that might be new to you, be that pricing or what we're going to talk about today. There's workshops, there's webinars like the one you're on. There's mentoring one-on-one, and you can find out more information from your provincial marketing organization. And then, of course, you've got your DMOs and PMOs on the ground to help you. And so the toolkit focuses primarily on U.S., United Kingdom, Germany, and China. But the information that we're presenting, that is presented in the toolkit, and much of what's being presented today will also work for other markets. But that's the primary focus of the toolkit. And so a little bit of jargon here as we're going through. Some of this will be quite familiar to you. We've already referenced PMO, DMO, and the International Inbound Tour Operator, a Receptive Tour Operator, and SAM trips. There's also partnership organizations that help you build your business, and those are listed on the right, ranging from NTA to USTOA to BMD New Quebec, so there'll be some reference back and forth to these as well. So as we jump in here, so the first part we're going to talk about is really planning for your sales call. So what do you need to know before you get there? So no one has a lot of time these days. Time is limited, so you really want to ensure that when you have that phone call or that face-to-face meeting, that you have done as much as you possibly can in advance and really take advantage of the time that you've got with the buyer. And so we want to really understand what the buyer is all about, who they go after, what kind of products they're looking for, and we really want to understand what geographic areas they go after, what countries they serve, if we're speaking receptive tour operator, or even tour operator. Perhaps they're not just in one country, but they're serving, say, German-speaking countries. So we want to really get in that handle on what our potential partner is all about, and based on that, what they're looking for. And then we really want to get a good sense of timing. So for those of you that have gone through the toolkit, we reference 18 months fairly regularly throughout the program, but that's on a broad scale. So as we're now diving in to speak one-on-one with an operator, we want to get a sense really of how they plan. So what we're finding as we're doing the research and as the industry continues to evolve, is that planning cycle is going even further. And then some buyers, some receptive tour operators or tour operators have a very specific process in how they select and onboard new product. So we really want to get a handle before we go in and understand what that looks like. And so we're going to dive a little deeper into these topics now. Okay, so the first, you're going to hear me speak of your DMO and PMO throughout the workshop and certainly throughout this hour. They are your partner in really developing your international market. They have relationships, they have great knowledge, they understand specifically what these buyers are looking for in your specific province. So certainly recommend that you partner with your partners, partner with your DMO and PMO as you're going to reach out to find new clients. And then looking at the website. So those would be two great places to start. Some of the, under the acronyms we spoke earlier, if you're a member of those associations or if your DMO would be a member, is being able to access some of that information through there as well. So a couple of different options for research and really understanding the client. And so we really want to know, what you need to know, and are they a good match for me? How could we work best together? What are they looking for? What products similar to what you have to offer are they already using? So we want to get a good handle on this before we dive in and meet with that particular buyer. And so some of the things that we want to take a look at here, and again, we'll dive a little deeper into these topics, is what are the countries of focus for the buyer? So some receptive tour operators focus on one particular country or language spoken. Others serve a wide range. So want to get a handle on that. And then really, what are they offering? Is it really a bus tour company primarily? Are they, is it niche product? What is it that they bring out to the marketplace? And then what destinations in Canada? And so you're going to find, when we're looking at these receptive tour operators, some will be Canada and US-wide, where others are very specific to Atlantic Canada. So that's a great thing to know in advance. And then how does that particular buyer, a receptive tour operator or tour operator, position themselves? do they operate under a variety of names in order to attract a variety of markets? And then back to really understanding the timing of what's important to that particular client. And so when we start looking at countries of focus, pulled some of this information off the key receptive tour operators in a country. So this is, you can go see this as you're doing your own research. So the first one, some of them list them quite openly. So it may indicate right on the website, and this is right off one of the websites, the countries that they serve. So in here it's quite a range: Australia, Germany, France, and the UK. So that may be there for you. And other times you may have to do a little more digging. So what I found on a couple was languages spoken. So again, here, of course, English, Canadian website, but the languages spoken were English, French, Dutch, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. So that'll give me a pretty good indication. May have to do a little more work. So in here, perhaps, Portuguese, is it, I'm looking at sections of South America or Portugal, or with Spain, or with Spanish, am I looking at Spain or perhaps Mexico? But it gives me a great place to start. So now I get a sense that this particular receptive tour operator is really quite global in their approach. And so for me as the provider or the partner or the business offering services and experience, am I ready to serve all these countries? What would be the best fit for me? So I would like to have that knowledge of my own offering in advance and then partner with that client in order that we both win out of that. Some of the other more subtle approaches here that you'll see on the websites. Here was one, and it was just a small, one of the information buttons there had Chinese characters. So on here, I'm going, okay, they're going after the Chinese, maybe the China market, but certainly the Chinese-speaking market. And then another one in here, English and German, and on request, we provide services in French. So again, getting a good handle on the countries that this particular business, be it a receptive tour operator or tour operator, serves. Any questions so far? I did see one in here. Will the PowerPoint be available afterwards? Yes, it will, and Juanita and the team at H&L will give you that information. Thank you for that, Yolanda. And so the product offering. So now I've got a sense of the countries that this particular receptive tour operator serves, but what are they offering? What are they putting out in the marketplace? And so here, again, be able to find this through web research or working with your PMO and DMO. So we'll get a whole range in here. So if you're going after group market or bus tour market, we want to make sure that that particular business offers that, if that's specifically who you're after. And then we've got fly drive, so in the FIT market, we've got now we start getting into very defined products, so luxury product, winter product, wildlife ranches. So now I've got a sense of, what does this company offer, and is it something that I have? Is there a good fit? What you're going to find on the actual tour operator sites, so the first one was looking at receptive tour operator. In the tour operator sites, it'll be a little more detailed. So you're going to get information specifically on the exact programs they offer. So pulled some examples here, hotel and flight packages, 14-day self-drive. We've got a 12-day comprehensive tour. And so in here, digging a little deeper, you can already see what they're offering. How could your product or service fit into what they currently have? Or would it be a brand new offering? So in here, you may have to work with your PMO to help present some itineraries. So want to get a good sense of what's happening there. And then we can go a little further in finding some niche markets. So interesting in here, we've got faith-based, going after the single travel market, the solo traveler. And then in here, an exploration market. So this company is saying we specialize in small group adventure-based travel. So if that is a fit for you, if that's something that your offering would work well with. Gives you a great opportunity to say, I see this is what you're currently offering. Here's how we can actually help in your overall product offering. Okay. Got a comment there on volume and voice, Sunita. I'm hoping you can jump in and work with that one for me. And so again, with the affiliations and some of the acronyms you saw earlier, you can get this information through some of these associations and working directly with them, or again in partnership with your PMO and DMO. And so now we're going even a little bit further. So we've delved in a little more research. So we've got a sense of the countries served, some of the products being offered, and now what parts of the country is this particular receptive tour operator selling? And so we'll get a range here. You mentioned mentioned earlier. Some cover. You'll see here group tours, Canada and U.S. We've got one here very specialized in Atlantic Canada. One going from Atlantic Canada but stopping at Manitoba. And then we've got some saying, we really specialize in hotel focused programs. So again, this will give you a sense if you're a hotelier and this particular receptive tour operator offers a huge range from 2 to 5-star product. That might be a great fit for you. And so some of the brands, so what this little icon that popped up here came right off of one of the receptive tour operator sites. So not only is this receptive tour operator working B2B with international inbound tour operators, they also have a retail brand. So I want to get a sense of how they position themselves in the market. Are they strictly a receptive, or as the page 22 out of the toolkit, you'll see this particular image. Is this receptive? Do they have a consumer direct product? Is it strictly to the inbound international tour operator? How does that whole picture look? And why this is important, if I do end up contracting with this particular company, I'm going to contract more than likely under their receptive brand, but as information comes into my business, it may reference the other brand. So I want to make sure that I'm aware of it and my team's aware of it, so when that information comes in, even though the name may be different, I know it's through that receptive tour operator. So, and how do these brands, so maybe there's one brand that fits really particularly well with your product offering. So doing your research in advance, and through here I'm also going to get a sense of their different audiences. Any questions so far? So why don't we just, I'm hoping that you might have a pen and paper handy. So why don't you just to quickly think about which countries would be likely the best fit for your business. So at least you've got that kind of narrowed down. And then if you're looking at the type of product, are you looking for a company that specializes in luxury, mid-market, or more cost-conscious travel? So if you can kind of just think about those for your own business. If anyone would like to share that in the chat box, that would be great. And as you're now kind of figuring out who this company is all about, one of the things that I do want to know, and I'll have to probably find this out directly from the business, so my PMO and DMO may already have this information. How do they, what do they do as far as bringing on new product? Do they have a specific process in-house for that? Is it do they have very defined timelines for that? How does that work? Are there cutoffs for the tariff? So the tariff is the information that they use to present and sell to the international inbound tour operator. So I want to make sure that I have this information because I am working further out. So I'll give you an example. There was, with one, there was a large Canadian receptive tour operator. They start sourcing their product in October, and then have a very large internal planning process or program in January, February. So I need to put that in my sales action plan now. So any questions? Okay, so one of the questions that I'm hoping you will ask yourself is, what information would you like to have before meeting with a potential buyer? So some of what we just covered now, what would be most important to you? So really having a handle on that. And then hopefully you've got a good understanding of where you can get that information. Okay, we'll continue on. So moving into section 2, this is really about structuring your presentation. So now you've done some research, so you've narrowed it down. You really want, that planning process at the beginning will save you a lot of time later, and it will save the buyer time. You've already now got a pretty good sense that this particular client may be a good fit. So when I refer to client, I am referring to receptive tour operator, international inbound tour operator. And so the steps here is really engaging. So how am I going to engage? And then exploring. So you've got some good information from the research you did, but you'll want to dive or dig a little bit deeper in order to really determine that fit and move this potential relationship along. And then presenting what you have and explaining or helping the buyer understand why you would be a really great fit for their offering, why this is a good long-term partnership, then recapping it in the sense of really defining what you need to do, what's happened so far, what you have to offer, and then what you need to do next. And so, checking, you've done some research. Ideally face-to-face meetings are the best. Sometimes that's difficult because some of the buyers, your potential buyers, are based in, in places where you're not. So they're in Toronto, or they're in Calgary, or in Vancouver. If you're wanting to work with the international inbound tour operator direct, they're overseas. So what would be great is to really find out from your PMO, DMO, are any of the clients that you defined as a high likely potential fit coming into your area for FAMs or other business purposes? And then starting to ask some great questions. So really great question is, how are new product decisions made in your organization? What's the process? Who's involved? Do they have a meeting first and then send somebody out for a site visit? How does the whole thing work? And then really already finding out, what they're doing in Atlantic Canada, what's really working well for them. Are there some routings that are particularly popular that they may need additional product, or maybe considering other routes in and around their most popular product offerings now? And particularly if you're within that region, so you're now offering an alternative to help them with their top selling product where they may have an inventory challenge. And then really getting a sense of, what's your mix? Is it, if you're after individual or group travel, you'll want to know that. And I'll also, if I'm after group travel, want to know the average size of group that they attract. Is it large buses that they're bringing through? Is it smaller, SUV type travel? What does that look like? And want to get a sense of, how is business in the region? Are you finding, is it on the rise? Is it flat? Are you noticing that it's shifting somewhat? What are the trends? And how is this impacting their product planning? Based on the trends, what are they looking at? What are their future plans? The whole point of figuring out how you can fit into that. What is the buyer looking for in relation to a supplier relationship? What are their expectations when they bring on a new partner? You want to get a sense of existing programs, how many days in the program, what are the price points, do they are some more price sensitive, or are they really focused on the luxury market? Is it having the wow experiences is more important to them than necessarily price? Really want to get that information. And then really expanding, showing the client that you did your research. So again, I see that you're offering X. How is that going? We have a very similar offering. So weaving it back into what you have to offer. And then really presenting based on fit. You should have a good understanding what their offering is now and saying, in relation, these are the experiences and products that I see you're currently offering. Here's something, that we have that aligns with that, but on top of that, you get this extra bonus, whatever that bonus happens to be. And so really presenting it on benefits based to the buyer. And if you have a problem, you can solve for them. So right now, I'm actually speaking to you from BC this morning. I'm just on the BC-Alberta border, and very interesting, kind of tied into that challenge. So the region that I'm in is about a 2-hour drive from Banff, and it's still in the Rockies, and so they've really taken advantage of that. So for those of you that have attended the workshop, we speak a little bit about compression in the mountain regions. And so this particular area is not feeling compression, but they have a very similar experience. And on top of that, they have this unique offering of hot springs. So there's a great way for this region to really leverage that. So working with tour operators, having them develop new itineraries or reroute existing itineraries, offering still very much a Rockies experience, and then really day tripping Banff and having the overnights and the food and beverage and the experiences offered in this region. So that's such a great example if I get a sense of what challenges that they're having, what problem can I fix, how could I now solve that for them and help them continue to make money and service the guests that they service. So really want to ask that question, are there any challenges they're currently having? Are they finding inventory challenges in any area, or perhaps there's other challenges? And so how can you help them with that? So increase the demand, as I mentioned, so more supply needed. And then really from there, if you can solve that challenge of, as I just mentioned, with supply and then offering something extra, it's a really good step for a long-term partnership. So there is compression. Thank you very much for that, Lynn. Really appreciate that. So I get caught occasionally with an acronym or a term. So compression is really meaning that there's too much demand and not enough supply in an area. So the area is sold out at certain times, but people continue to want to buy it. So I'm going to offer alternatives, because with the receptive tour operator, if they get a no and they have buyers ready to buy, everybody loses. So how can I solve that problem for them? That the end user, that consumer, that visitor to Canada still gets a fantastic experience, gets part of what they were looking for, and some benefits of perhaps in other areas. So I want to weave that all in together so it's a benefit for the buyer and it's ultimately a benefit for that consumer that's showing up into your area for the first time. And it comes down to, why should the buyer include you? So the fact that you have availability, unless it's in an area where they are short of supply, that's probably not enough. They need to know something else. Are you going to help them attract different types of clients? Perhaps they've been looking at going more into youth travel, and you've got a product that works for that. You can only present that when you really understand what the goals that the client has are. So really digging in and then presenting based on that. Thanks again for that question, Lynn. And it comes down to presenting your unique benefits. So you've done some fantastic research, you've asked some great questions, and now you're presenting. And I have a little example here for you. So you indicated that your growth market is for first-time German travelers to Atlantic Canada. One of our unique benefits at X Adventures is that that Exit Ventures offers 2 full-time German-speaking guides. We've also found from our experience with the German market that many of our travelers prefer a more customized and unique offering. Based on this, our German-speaking guides take the passengers to X. We are the only company offering this experience. So a whole number of things you've done in a statement like that. You've shown that you've done some research. You really meet a need that they have, so you've identified the countries that they serve, and you're offering a benefit that their experience for the visitor will be enhanced based on the fact that your staff speak their language, and that you've got an only in there, so you're the only company taking them to X. So everything is leading up to this magic moment where you can present why you are a fantastic fit and then have an extra bonus that you can offer the buyer. So any questions? So I'd like you to take a quick moment, and I'd like you to write down what you think your most unique benefit is. So what is that? And if we can do it in a travel trade context, that would be fantastic. So what's something that you can offer to the international U.S. visitor that's really unique, that's going to make their entire experience in Canada or Atlantic Canada really stand out for them. And then the second part of this, and if you don't have a chance to do it now, I certainly encourage you to do it after the webinar, is if you could ask one great question, what would it be? And so that's something that, is probably really important to you. So what is it? What piece of information would really help you as far as presenting your product? Okay, we'll continue on. Any questions? Okay. Great. So what we're going to talk about now is some do's and don'ts. So this is right from the trenches. So this is really great advice. So we want to talk about understanding the bigger picture. Make sure what we know what we're going to include. Pardon me, and what to avoid, and really understanding some customs and travel regulations. So we've got a few things happening here. And so looking at an international perspective, just presenting my individual product is going to leave the puzzle somewhat incomplete. So I want to get a sense, of what I can present in partnership with my offering. So are there some new experiences? Are there some new experiences in your area? You may not own or operate them, but it will be part of the visitor's complete experience in your area or region. So I want to make sure I've really got a good handle on that before I'm meeting with the buyer. And how does it, how do you complement other service offerings that are available in your destination or region? So you've got, perhaps there's already some other products that are selling very well to the trade. How could you fit into that? So you want to look at that from both sides. Going to the buyer and presenting yourself and saying, here's something you may want to consider that's new. Or I see that you're already using X. We are, located very close to this. We have a unique offering that works so well with that. So I want to make sure I tie the two together. And it's really the question I need to ask myself is why should the buyer include me? And what would be the benefit in it for them? So if I can't answer those two questions in advance of meeting with the buyer, it's probably unlikely that they're going to see the benefit. So I need to really understand that benefit and make sure I present it really clearly to them. So that's really about understanding the bigger picture. And when we start talking about other options, they come down to competitors. So do check out, make sure you understand the competition. And that competition may not be right next door or right in your community or region. Perhaps if I'm offering kayak tours, I want to have a good understanding of kayak tours perhaps in my province for all of Atlantic Canada, and how perhaps we can actually now partner so we're no longer competition. Never put down the competition, or the destination. Really highlight your uniqueness instead. That's a really great experience as well. One of our unique aspects of our experience is X. So acknowledging the competition in a positive way, and then highlighting, something that you have that makes it different and special. So do and don't is that absolutely do not put down the competition. You're selling all of Atlantic Canada together. Everybody wins when you do that. And things to make sure that you include. So absolutely link back to your research. You spent all that time. You have extra questions. You want to show them that you're really committed by doing the research. And structuring and really having those questions in advance. I've been selling for many, many years, and I've got some great questions that I like to ask, but I still have them, at my side in the car just to check back to make sure that I've included that. So some of how we can link all this, I see that you have X highlighted in your destination experience in 2019. How did that go? That's a new product for you. Did it meet expectations? Was it above? Was it below? Great question to link back to your research. Other things that we may want to include based on the research. I see that you offer faith-based tours. Are you bringing any of those tours to X, meaning your region? How do they differ from your regular tour program offering? So now I'm digging in to see if perhaps that might be a fit. Can I work with you on that particular aspect of your product offering? You indicated that you offer group travel to Atlantic Canada on your website. What's your average group size? What are the trends your companies experience in group travel? Is it on the rise? Again, I want to get a sense on that. Or perhaps you're finding longer itineraries. Great. So perhaps that means they want to extend the itinerary or program. So again, linking it back, asking some fantastic questions. You want to have a solid plan for your question. So I actually want to, if I can, somehow guide the questioning that it really sets me up from offering my unique benefit. In here we're taking a look at the seniors market. So what percentage of your business comes from the seniors market? And then get the answer and now link in your benefit. Why are you a fantastic fit for the seniors market? We're the only restaurant in X along the waterfront that is fully accessible indoors, inside and out, or indoors and outside. We're also the only restaurant in X that offers a seniors meal option for groups at lunch. So now you've set it up, you've addressed the seniors market. Hopefully they said back to you, it's our largest growing segment. That would be fantastic, and we're looking for new food and beverage options. And but even if they haven't said that, you can address the seniors market saying, we understand the seniors market and already serve it well. Some things to avoid is asking questions on information you should already know. So asking how long has the company been in business, it's almost always on the website. Again, you can link that in nicely and going, I see you've been operating for 30 years into Atlantic Canada, and then move on from there. So you've addressed the fact that you've done, you know a little bit about their company and you've done some homework. And asking if, do you currently bring tours to X? That you should probably know. That's information you can get from your PMO and DMO. Some of that you can find online. So versus asking the question is starting as a statement. I see you're already bringing tours to X. Tell me a little bit about. So that has a far more professional impact, and it really shows your commitment to working with that market. And another one, again, what countries do you serve? So one of the first examples we gave is really being able to figure that out. So linking back, I see from your website that Germany is a prime target market for your company. What other countries do you target? So again, linking back that you've done some work, and they may say, actually, we're no longer serving that market. Okay, that's great to know, but you've already addressed it in a way of showing that I will be a good, solid partner for you because I'm committed to learning about your company and making sure we're a good fit for one another. And then really want to make sure that the next steps are defined. So that's pretty critical in here. You've done all the work so far. So you've met with your PMO, DMO, you've done some online research, you've really considered what information you need to know, you've got a really good handle on your product, you've now met with the buyer. So really want to make sure that we've defined the next steps. So asking them, how do you feel that our product or service experience would fit in? How do we move forward from here? Sounds a little direct, but the buyer would not have given you time if they weren't interested as well. So you're both in an exploring stage, but there's already a level of interest expressed based on the time committed. What additional information and resources can I provide you with? What do you need to know? And this might be something that you may not have at your fingertips. So maybe it's bus parking in the town center. Hopefully, if you're working with groups, you know that already. But now you're going to work with your partners to bring that information back. So now you're selling the destination. Any questions? Does anyone have any other do and don't advice of something that, and I certainly welcome the PMO and DMO partners to jump in here. Any other advice that you can give from do's and don'ts would be fantastic. Oops, sorry. Okay, I'll watch the chat box there, so I'm hoping someone offers some advice there. We'll continue on while we're doing that. So the last section here is really, now you've done a fantastic job. You've now landed yourself a nice partnership account. And so that's, everything leading up to there has now got you the contract. And now you want to nurture that relationship. So what you will likely find with your receptive tour operator and tour operator relationships, you could have them for many, many years. And so want to make sure that you now have a good understanding of what you need to know to really nurture that partnership and ideally grow business if that's what you're after. So my first thing I want to ask myself is, what do I want to do with this account? Do I want more business from them? Some may not. Some may say this is a perfect fit. We have 10 buses arriving on, on Tuesdays, starting in June. This is fantastic. And others are saying I've got more capacity, I've got more availability, I would love to add more. So really getting a sense of what your goal is with that particular partnership, and then what they need from you. So we're going to look at timing here, but this is now timing in relation to product knowledge sessions. So the product knowledge sessions is really now going into that business and not just working with the buyer, the contact that you had, the person that's brought you into the company, but now helping the rest of the organization understand more about your product and offering. So that's something we want in here. I'm just going to put a little bit of a pause in here. Grant, you put, don't offer more than you can really deliver. That's a fantastic, fantastic point. So we're back to the do's and don'ts briefly, and we'll jump then right back into the product knowledge sessions. So these are long-term partnerships. They're, and integrity is a big part of that, and really making sure that everybody's happy. So if you've said yes and you've taken more than you can actually deliver, and now the quality of the service is lacking, you put all that work into contracting that particular business, and that may slip away from you for that. So thank you so much for that, Grant. So I'm going to jump back now into the product knowledge session. So I'm going to talk about timing, content, and what to bring. And so a couple of things in here. So one of it could be structured as a sales call. So you may be meeting with a couple of the senior people in the product team within that receptive tour operator or tour operator. The receptive tour operator, again, if you haven't really worked extensively, or you're just starting off in travel trade, that's your best place to start. Start with your Atlantic Canada-based receptive tour operators and then branch out across the country. Perhaps you've been working with the travel trade for many, many years, and now you've had some opportunity to work direct with an overseas international tour operator. So you've got a couple of different scenarios in here, so really understanding kind of where you're at with that. So the sales calls, again, sometimes trickier to do because you know, they're located in areas where you're not. The same with the product training sessions. So I want to look at my plan for the entire year, and now perhaps I'm going into the Toronto market. And I know now that I'm going to go in August for the Meeting and Incentive Travel Show. So I know that many months out, and if I'm working with any Toronto-based receptive tour operators, I want to let them know as soon as possible when I'll be coming into town. So we're going to touch on that a little bit further here. Oops, sorry. And so there will be certain times that the receptive tour operator will be open to having product presentations, and there are times where absolutely no one can come in and present. So I want to know that well in advance. So when I'm planning, I can ensure, make sure that I'm into that window where they're going to let me come in and meet with their team. I want to know how far in advance they'll actually book a presentation. So maybe they've got it 3 months in advance, or maybe they're open, for the whole year. So you can let them know now that you're going to be there next December. And if you, also try to find out when your particular buyer or the people you want to meet with the company generally are away. So there'll be certain trade shows that your buyer will attend annually. That's a great question to ask them well in advance, a year or two out. And I'll make note of that as I'm, developing information on my particular buyer. So all this information is really important. If we're trying last minute, if you're trying 2 weeks out to book a product session in Toronto, I think you're going to have a really tough time. Perhaps in some other regions it's easier, but advanced planning is going to serve you well. And so some of the things it should include, so now you've figured out the timing. Ideally, you've leveraged or maximized your time because you're going to tie it in with some other business you may have in that region, which is great. And now you want to get a sense of who will attend that session. And this is really about showcasing, all the fantastic things about your business's experience. So it should include some strong visuals, but equally or probably more important is a great story, something personal, something they can remember about it. Because they will have people coming in very, very regularly and doing product presentations. How's yours going to stand out? So really spending some time and helping them really envision the experience that their customers will have, that really authentic local approach. So that storytelling is critical and really sharing the local's perspective. So maybe there's some kind of best-kept local secrets that you can share. So when your visitors are here, this is my favorite place to go with my family on weekends, whatever that happens to be. And bringing a broader perspective. You were there to talk about your business, absolutely. But your business is part of a bigger experience. So how does your business weave into that bigger experience, and helping the staff and the team and those actually selling your product and experience from that receptive tour operator office, helping them understand that. And that really need to know information. This is a great opportunity. So if you've hopefully already highlighted any special requirements, be it on physical level of physical activity, equipment to bring, and this is your chance to really highlight even more. So if you're finding that some of the visitors at first kind of go around as you're working things out, that there were some things that weren't the perfect fit, this is a great place to bring that up. So really making sure that they convey your message to their client, who's then conveying it to the end user, the traveler that will show up at your door. and be prepared to answer questions not just on your product but also the overall destination.
The distribution list, and then like handout.
And a great idea to bring some giveaways. Sometimes your PMO, DMO might be able to help you with that, but bringing a little gift that's a little something that you can give to the people that attend the workshops. I hand out some reference material, so after you leave, they've got something. You can do that digitally as well. Snacks and treats are always good. Bring chocolates. Always seems to go over well. And then not just about your product, but perhaps overall destination info. And then who to contact.
Okay.
So it might be not, you may have been the person that signed the contract, but somebody else in your business is handling the day-to-day. So making sure that you link that information back. And so the questions that you want to ask yourself is, you know, what do I really want that staff to remember? So if it's already pretty straightforward information, I don't want to waste my time on that. If they've got that already on a fact sheet that I know they've got in the business, but what are the extra things? What is something that when they're talking to somebody a week later that I want to jump in their mind so they convey that to a buyer overseas? Anything important for them to know about your product or service that impacts the end user's enjoyment of that? And what makes your offering special? Back to the why are you so fabulous and unique? How do you put that out there? And so you kind of covered the whole gamut here. You've got a micro and a macro approach that we've talked about here. So part of this is, the broader actions. So it could be that you're setting rates by a certain time, that you're, sending out information, that you're setting appointments for a certain trade show, but then you'll have very specific actions by account. So if I know that I met somebody last year and they told me that their product review or their product assembly, getting information on new products starts on October, I want to be in there right at the end of September. And if they're presenting in January to their entire team, what do they need from me? What can I do to help that process? So you're going to have both listed. So broader on servicing the tour and travel market through the receptive tour operators in Canada, and perhaps if you're working direct with any international inbound tour operators, and then very specific. And then really considering, your commissionable rates and having that information well in advance. Working with each, you may have different rates for each particular buyer based on what you've got set up. So making sure I've got that well in advance. And that kind of takes us to the end. So I'd really like to hear back from anybody. Any questions anyone has, you can certainly open your mic and we can address those now, or you can use the chat box. Okay. Someone's typing, so we'll just wait for that to come through. So I'm hoping that you've got some additional questions, perhaps the ones that you've already created for yourself, that will help you in developing that partnership, really understanding the importance of that research and planning stage, and then, getting my questions and moving into engagement. Why is your product or service so fantastic to this best fit tour operator or receptive tour operator that you've identified? So that would be pretty important to have all that information together. And then really once I've gone all the way down the line, I've now landed myself a contract, making sure that you ask for that business and get that contract in place, and then figuring out how you're going to continue that partnership, nurture that relationship, and work with this company for a long time. Okay, I think that brings us to the end. You can continue questions if you have any, but right now I'm going to turn it over to Whitney. The link is going to be emailed to us, the toolkit. So Juanita, on that note, I'm going to pass things back to you to wrap up. Okay, I've got a question here first, though. Can I just answer that one question? How do you recommend asking about payment options? Many receptives pay 30 days after the service is complete and leaves the operator with no. That's a very good question. It's it's coming down to asking for your absolute optimum, and they're going to ask for that optimum hopefully somewhere along the way you can find a happy medium. And you've got to, make sure that if this is something that just can't work for you, finding others perhaps with different volumes, or maybe they've got this different payment structures. Not sure if that completely answers it, but both of you, they probably want to wait as long as they can to pay, and you would like your money as far in advance as possible, and hopefully there's a happy medium in there for you, Ryan. Okay, Juanita, now I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Eva. Great presentations and a lot of valuable information covered today. You will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the resources and an evaluation feedback, as well as you will see that the program can be accessed through your own provinces. In New Brunswick, please reach out to Anna Maria. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, you can contact us here at Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador. In Nova Scotia, you can contact Jennifer. And in Prince Edward Island, you can contact Grant McCrae. So if you have no more further questions, I will thank you all for coming. And of course, there are other ACT program content that you can take advantage of. There will be workshops in the new year, as well as more webinars. And at any time, if you're interested in some more mentoring with Eva, please contact us. So on behalf of your partners, which is Tourism New Brunswick, Tourism Nova Scotia, Tourism Newfoundland and Labrador, and Tourism Prince Edward Island and ACOA, I thank you for attending today. Thank you.